You can't start the car. Johnny has the keys.
Hello, hello, hello out there in podcast land and YouTube world. You have reached Johnny Has the Keys, a podcast and YouTube channel where two friends get together. We discuss horror and science fiction films, television, sometimes literature, those key elements that have elevated those genres or those particular efforts in the genre above the average fare, and the key things that they have influenced. Hence that lovely title, Johnny Has the Keys. If you are just joining us for the first time, wow, glad you found us. It would be great if you would give us a review, rate us, give us a star, ring a bell, subscribe, do all those great things that help us increase our exposure, because we love to expose ourselves. If you are returning to us, you know that we like to expose ourselves, so we're glad you're back. My name is David. I am here with my good friend Tim. Tim, what have you been up to?
Oh my goodness, nothing like a good ramble that deviates into the realm of sexual double entendres.
Sexual double entendres. Welcome to radio, folks.
Speaking of radio. No, what we'll get there. Right now, well, I guess I think I can't even remember what some of my topics of the weeks have been over these last few episodes, but I know it seems like I've been in sci-fi land a little bit, and I decided to jump back into horror. No, actually, I was in Sea Fever last week, but that one was kind of sci-fi. I went to Shudder because I haven't been watching Shudder lately, and they have a new series out called Behind the Monsters.
Yes.
The first season is 6 episodes. Currently, I've only seen 4 of them. The ones I have seen were Michael Myers, Candyman, Chucky, and Freddy. And then I still have Pinhead and Jason to go. I like this show. Its format is a little less cutesy than the one that we talked about that's on Netflix. The movies that made us, or
movies
whatever.
That made us. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I like this also because they have podcasters commenting, and I'm like, why aren't they calling us? I know.
Darn right.
I was like, I've never heard of that podcast, but I know about Johnny Has the Keys. Anyway, it was fun to revisit them. What they basically do is talk about the original film and the origin of the quote monster, and then they end up going through the entire franchise and everything they've touched. So, for instance, Freddy goes all the way through Wes Craven's New Nightmare and Freddy versus Jason, the crossover. It was really, I really like their choices too. I mean, they made the obvious choices of Freddy and Michael and Jason, but they threw Candyman and Pinhead in there too. So, I mean,
well, there's a new Pinhead coming, so there you go.
That's true. Wait, is it a remake?
Yeah.
Seems like I think we did discuss
it's a reboot, is what they're saying, of Hellraiser. But the cool thing that they said was Pinhead is actually being played by
it's a woman, isn't it?
Girl from Sense8, the trans girl from Sense8. What was her name?
It's been so long since I've seen that.
She's really good, though. I really liked her in Sense8. I thought
I did too.
And it'll be interesting to see. I mean, she's been kind of hinting and posting stuff on Twitter because I follow her, and cool. She's been saying, you guys are going to be blown away. Oh, this is so neat. Or I had my first live cast, and she shows a picture of her getting the live cast done, you know, and I was going, oh yeah, cool. So we'll see.
Yeah, when I watched the Candyman episode, I was like jonesing because I was just getting reminded of all this stuff when we covered Candyman. And, one of the reasons I'm a little bit vague on the Hellraiser you're talking about is because of the COVID haze that movie land is right now, because so many things have stopped and started and or not been released or coming, and you never know when or where. And Candyman was a great example of that.
Yep.
It came and went, and I never saw it. And I thought, well, you know what? Screw this. I'll go rent it after I saw this Behind the Monsters. But it's not regular price yet. It's like still you have to buy it for like $20 or something. So I'm assuming in the next few weeks it'll come down in price, and then I'll just rent it. But I want to see it. I really do, because I was seeing all these interviews with Tony Todd for this Behind the Monsters thing. I love the little poster too with it's got the little Hollywood star Walk of Fame, but it's got Jason's mask impressed into the concrete and Freddy's glove.
Yeah. I got jealous when you first said it and said this is on Shudder. Shudder has done so good for your genre, and sci-fi has so screwed up my genre. It's just not fair,
And you want to know why? Because they squandered 30 years on channel that didn't do anything. That Sci-Fi Channel sucks. They've always sucked.
Well, I mean, they've had a few, that's where I got to see, ironically, I got to see one of the series that we're going to talk about later on with this director of the movie we're covering. That was, I first found on Sci-Fi. So that was okay. But, any series that they've ever produced, they've screwed up, with the exception of Expanse. Expanse has been, but that's because they canceled it like they always do, and Amazon got it.
Didn't they do Battlestar also?
Same thing, I think. I think they started, well, Battlestar may have been their shining glory.
I think it was. I can't remember, but it seems like it.
Yeah, seems like it was.
You would know better than me.
Yeah, I'd have to look into that, because I never finished Babylon. Sorry if they're sci-fi fans. I mean, not Babylon, Battlestar.
Battlestar, yeah.
So yeah, we'll see about if sci-fi can ever do anything good again, sort of thing. But sci-fi wise,
I was going to tell you one more thing. I watched the Freddy episode most recently, and they had Wes Craven's son on there, since Wes Craven is no longer with us. They did have clips of Wes in old interviews, but then they had new clips of his son and Robert Englund and Heather Langenkamp, which is cool, because these guys are actually participating in whereas in some of those movies that made us, they're not. So.
Oh, right. You never hear from anybody other than like two of the minor characters.
Right. Or Nick Castle, who played the Shape. Yeah.
Right.
They have all three of the guys that have played the Shape in this one.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And I like that it's creature focused, not necessarily story focused, sort of thing. That's kind of a cool idea. Because especially since another series Sci-Fi did have that was awesome that they got rid of was Face Off, with all of the makeup artists.
The makeup. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they got rid of it at its prime when everybody was starting to talk about it. But anyway, we digress. Sci-fi wise, I have been in sci-fi world because I have been jonesing for us to return to the dilithium chamber. So I have been.
I have too.
So I started looking around and found some podcasts, and I found one, and I think I've mentioned it a few weeks back, called Enterprise Incidents, INCIDENTS. And it's basically, they do what we do, but they take one episode of classic Star Trek and talk about it. And they just finished doing Who Mourns for Adonis, except they kept pronouncing it Adonias.
It is Adonias.
I've never heard Adonias until the past 6 months. I have spent 50 years of my life saying Adonis.
I've always said Adonais, though.
Yeah, Adonias was in there too. And I looked it up, and either pronunciation actually works, but both definitions are different, which I thought was really, really interesting. Because, I mean, seriously, famous monsters of filmland, Starlog, any old radio interviews, cons I went to, anything. It was Adonis. It was always Adonis. And when you Google, how do you pronounce this? The very first thing you see is Adonis. But then the one underneath that says Adonais and Adonias and, but anyway, two totally different people. Basically, that word was made up by, I think it was either Keats, Byron, it was Shelley, it was one of those poets who
it was Shelley.
It was Shelley, yeah.
Yeah, and this is where I know it from because of being an English major. They always pronounced it Adonais, but only in the Shelley poem. It's Adonis in Greek mythology.
Well, yeah, because even the Shelley poem is supposedly Adonis and another Jewish kind of thing that they put together, that Shelley put together in the poem. So that was interesting, but it was cool listening to that episode again, and I can't wait till we cover it on the Dilithium Chamber because that's a cool episode.
Actually, it looks like Keats had one too, but Shelley's the one I know.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Shelley.
Yeah,
that they mentioned even on this podcast where they were reviewing it.
Wow.
And they even mentioned, Star Trek Continues, which is great because they, I told you Star Trek Continues, one of their episodes.
I've seen it.
Yeah. And it's a brilliantly, it is fifth, it's the fourth season of Star Trek, the original series. It just is.
And they did a spinoff on the story. They brought back the actor that played the god.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who played who played Apollo.
Adonais.
No, he played Apollo.
Actually, it is Apollo in there. Yeah, you're right.
I think Robert Forrest, I think is his name, something like that. Anyway, but he was really good in it, and of course he was really great. He was. I can't wait till we cover it because he was so on par with Shatner.
And it's so funny. We're always on the same level. It seems like when we do these little things at the beginning of the episodes. But all week I was like, I can't wait till we get through with this second season of X-Files. I want to go back to the second season of Star Trek.
Yeah.
And those first 7 episodes in particular.
And a little plug for those of you who are listening to us for the first time, we have 2 sister podcasts for our Patreon members, and one of them is called the Dilithium Chamber, and it covers classic, original Star Trek. We've just completed the first season, and we're waiting to do the second season. And we also have another Patreon exclusive called the X-Files Declassified, where we are going episode by episode through the original X-Files.
Right. And our logic on season division, or my logic on season division, was that since we were covering all of Star Trek, there was like 29 episodes with the pilot. So with X-Files, there's just way too many episodes. So we've kind of combined some, and our first season was only 10 episodes. So the second season is going to be 10 episodes. Then I figured it'd be about time to jump back over to Star Trek. And I'm ready for it.
I'm ready.
For sure. Even though I love Mulder and Scully. Mully and Sculder.
Mully and Sculder.
Yeah.
They're the 2 best characters on it.
Oh.
Tim, get your language correct. If you
I was
don't
going to
speak
say,
correctly.
man, my audio, and it is just off. And what a wonderful segue that is for today's film. We are in the world of horror. We joked earlier about being in the Great White North, and we are in Canada, a very snowy landscape. And it is not a Cronenberg movie, surprisingly. It's a movie by a relatively unknown guy, to me at least. We're doing a movie called Pontypool. The first time I saw that name, I thought, what on earth is Pontypool? And then you soon realize that it is actually the name of a town is it Ontario? I think it's in Ontario. Basically, this is a movie about a little independent radio station and a shock jock that goes to work. He's accosted at a stop sign, or is it a traffic light? by a woman
Talk about-
who bangs on his window and seems to be muttering the word blood. Scary. I mean, it's a great jump scare. I wasn't expecting it. Then he gets to the radio station and all hell starts breaking loose, and it turns into very much an apocalyptic scenario similar to zombie films, where he and his producer and their I guess tech person have to barricade themselves in because things are going chaotic outside, with a very unique explanation as to why. And we'll get into that a little bit more later. Was this, I'm assuming, the first time you have seen this movie, David?
Yes, this was my first time.
Okay.
And I have to say, when you said Pontypool and you put it on the list, I didn't think anything of it, but the first thing I thought about it was, oh my God, I bet that's some freaking anime or something that he's going to want me to watch, some foreign film. Because I think this year. I think I was confusing it with like Pogo, or there's some other
Pokemon.
Not Pokemon. Jesus, no. But
Pokemon.
You know, there's some other big anime like Pogo, Ponyo.
You're talking to the wrong dude.
I'm just saying there's an anime that correct me out there in listening land. But so no, I had no clue about this movie ever. I'd never seen a trailer. I never heard about it, never knew anything. And all you had told me was, do you remember that play we did, Talk Radio? You know, remember that movie? It's kind of like that. Yeah. So I went into it very blind, literally snow blind. And yeah, it was my first time. It was interesting.
Yeah. What do you think of it?
Initial reactions, I like 15 or 20 minutes into it, I was going, okay, this could be a play, because it is so singular. I'm sure they'll expand it later on and it won't be, but you know, for right now, this would be a great adaptation into a play. And then no, they didn't expand it. It basically takes place in that single set, so to speak, or that location. And so and then in doing research, found out that it was, and correct me if I'm wrong, it was written at the same time as a radio play, not a theatrical play, but a radio play, at the same time that the movie was being written or done or whatever. So that makes a lot of sense. My initial takes are, I thought it was good. I thought it obviously has been marketed terribly since it came out, because I'd never, ever heard of it.
Right.
It has some really strong performances. It has a really unique, I guess is the best way to say, story and basic construct to it that I don't think is very successful, but I do think it's handled really well. And I started reading reviews on it, trying to get other people's opinions, what they thought, yada, yada. And a lot of people seem to think, oh, it's a good horror comedy. I never got comedy. I got a couple of laugh moments, but that was but it was not a horror It wasn't, what's your zombie one with the,
Shaun of the Dead.
Shaun of the Dead. It wasn't Shaun of the Dead at all.
Not at all.
But it also was not really, really, really scary. It was tense and unnerving in places. And I love the fact that they approached the whole beginning of it with, well, actually the whole movie, we're only getting it from their perspective. And most of their perspective is only with audio. So they're only hearing eyewitness accounts and hearing the bombs drop and hearing helicopters.
It reminded me of something we would have done as teenagers before we had a video camera. We would have made this recording on audio like a radio play.
Oh, the Rowies and I used to get together all the time with our big cassette recorder and do entire stories, you know, the ship and all of that. So yeah, exactly. It reminded me of that. And But what did you think? I mean, you're the authority on it. You'd obviously seen it before.
You know me, I'm always looking for obscure films, and this one I discovered, back when it came out on DVD, I guess around 2009. So it's been over 10 years ago, and I remembered liking it, and I remember it being unique. So I thought I'll put it on the list. I have not seen it since. Like you, I read where someone called it a horror comedy, and other than some of McHattie's lines, which I found funny, this is not a comedy.
No,
I don't think it's a comedy at all. It's pretty horrific. It's also very unique. I'm trying to think. A lot of these Canadian movies get lost in the shuffle. Another one came out around the same time called Wendigo, and I seem to remember liking it a lot too, and I've not seen it since.
isn't Descent Canadian as well? I think Descent is Canadian.
Is it? I thought it was British.
Might be. I don't
Well,
know.
the director is British, I think. It's
Okay.
that guy, I think.
Um,
Anyway, but this movie, we'll go ahead and spoil it for folks. Well, I'll tell you what, shit starts happening at the radio station. They get these reports from a traffic helicopter guy, which reminds me of my book that I wrote, where you're seeing things on television from the news's perspective, and things are going chaotic with riots and supposed cannibalism, and then they get this French transmission, which Laurel Ann translates, saying to remain indoors, to not use terms of endearment or the English language, or rhetorical discourse, I think is the other thing they say.
and don't translate this message.
And don't translate this message, except for the viewers who need to know what's going on.
Right.
And so it turns out, and this is what the unique twist is on this series, is that the actual infection is transmitted audio wise through the English language. And to me, that concept alone makes this film worthy of watching, because you've never seen it before and you probably never see it again. It is a very unique twist to me.
Yeah,
anyway.
that would be my comment would be the opposite. That would be the reason not to watch this, because I don't think they do it very well. And I think they have huge issues, and it leads to a lot of literal confusion, both in the characters, but also in all of us watching it going, I'm not sure I'm understanding this. And I don't think they do that very well from a screenwriting and an execution standpoint.
I was mad.
In other words, define the contagion, define what happens from it, and define, I don't care where it came from. That's okay. We learned, from Night of the Living Dead. It doesn't matter where it came from.
No.
We're just suddenly plunged into it.
Yeah.
But I don't understand the mechanics of the virus, and I don't understand the aftermath of the virus. Some people do certain things, some people do other things. It affects everybody differently. I was very confused. So much so that I watched sections again, and even went back to the very, very beginning just to watch the credits again, just for the backstory sort of thing.
Right. The version, one of the things that made me mad is that this was very similar to the Praying Mantis movie. I couldn't find a copy of it at the time. And the only version I could find of it was on YouTube, and it already had subtitles in another language. So I couldn't watch English subtitles. And that kind of made me mad, because there was a lot of audio I couldn't understand that I wanted to hear, that I think would have clarified some of the stuff you're talking about. And that's what I feel created some of the confusion.
Well, possibly. I mean, McHattie is so strong in every scene he's in, and he does interpret a lot of it for us, so to speak. But it's interesting. The version I watched didn't have the only subtitles in it were when they started speaking French in their escape. But even then, it wasn't everything they said. It was like a sentence every now and then. So it wasn't totally translated. So I was
so
having
funny.
And I was wondering if that was intentional from the director to confuse us as an audience of, I can't follow their conversations. I don't know.
I was terribly confused because when they spoke French, it was translated into like Spanish or something else. And I couldn't understand a damn thing they were saying whenever they spoke in French. So I was like, no, it just makes me mad because when I saw this originally, it was on DVD. So I actually got to see it and I could look at subtitles correctly. And it was a little more clear to me. And of course, it's been over 10 years. So now I don't remember.
Yeah, I think I just got frustrated because I thought this was a well-executed could have been kind of thing, because it seems like they were trying to say stuff and either not saying it enough. I read a lot of people that said this would have made a great 1 hour movie, but it's really boring and stretched out and everything else.
I thought the same thing. It's like what we've said before. This would make a great episode of an anthology, like Twilight Zone or something.
And my notes, I've got both. I think it would make a great, condense it down so it's just, an hour long sort of thing, 58 minutes, something in there, or expand it and give us a little bit more pre-story and a little bit more explanation. Keep the last third basically what it is, but give us a little bit more of he's reached his peak and now he's coming down and he's really in the dregs and yada, yada, and get a little bit more of that, because he starts his first question of the day is, when do you call 911? Let's get some people calling in and telling them, like, they only get one crazy dude who calls in and says, maybe you make it 912. And that's if you're just really worried or whatever, sort of thing. And if that had happened earlier and we'd gotten a little bit more of their backstory, their chemistry with the three of them, there's a little bit of it there, but just not enough, in my opinion. And you could have made that more and longer and more interesting. And then I think it would have played out. There were just certain things and we need a lot more with what really is this and why. Because were they trying to eat each other? Why were they trying to eat? Because one thing I did like about it, I have to say this is my plus, is you really don't see assaults or attacks or anything like that. You see two in the whole movie. The rest of it is just your imagination of what's going on out there when you're listening on the radio of
That's
people
what I love. Yeah.
Yeah. Or you're seeing them come down the stairs toward the booth, but it's all through the blood smear, so you don't get good images or how many or what's happening. So I loved that. And again, I think the director could have done even more of that and made it even scarier. If we'd gotten more of a sense of this place, he did a lot of close-ups of, the guys right up in the microphone and everything else. And we didn't get a lot of that. Think of Carpenter, a lot of that. I'm going to move the camera around the room a little bit just to see this guy trapped in this white booth of sound sort of thing. Might have been cool and give us a presence and also make us really scared when we get trapped in there sort of thing. We had a couple of times where it was his point of view and you could see them talking outside the booth and you couldn't hear them. And that to me was scary. And there were a couple of times when our hometown hero girl was watching him and he was talking, but she didn't have her headphones in and she couldn't hear him. And that kind of isolation would have been cool to explore too. It's kind of like I said, I'm going off and off, but it seems like they had great ideas that they didn't take where they should have been.
I agree. And I think it's got something to do with the director writer team, because they've joked, or not joked, but they've insinuated that they were going to do 2 sequels to this film, and it's never happened.
Right.
And then they did another project together. I can't remember the name of it. And he said, well, basically this is a spin-off of it. I'm like, I read the synopsis. I was like, it doesn't sound anything like it. What are you guys doing? So you said you knew something that he did.
Well, the director is big in Canadian television.
Oh,
big.
okay.
If you look at his credits, like my wife and daughter watch Heartland, this series about a bunch of horse farmers in Canada. It's like 18 freaking seasons long or whatever, but it's it's Bonanza of Canada in modern day, really. But it's, because the young 16-year-old girl, but she's almost like a horse whisperer. She's so good with the animals. And anyway, it's a soap opera, but but it's very well produced. It looks great, but he's credited with like 4 years of that series.
Wow.
So
what is that show on?
Well, you can get it on BBC. You can get it on. I
So
think
is
it's on
it
Hulu now. Um,
okay? I was just
but
curious.
it was called Heartland. There was another one that was a sci-fi series, which was actually really good, called Dark Matter. A very unique premise of basically 7 people waking up on a starship and they have no memory whatsoever. And it's all about them forming their own little team of trust or distrust and
Well, then
going
it's
forward. And
starting to sound to me like it's not the director so much as it is the writer, because the
yeah,
writer does. I looked on Amazon, and he had a book out before this. The book that this is based on is called Pontypool Changes Everything. And he had a book before that called something, The Hellmouths of Bewdley. Hellmouths.
ooh,
I immediately think of Buffy. But
Buffy, yeah.
anyway, and when he was on a promotional, or when he was getting ready for the Bewley book to come out, they needed a cover shot, and he and his wife were driving somewhere and couldn't get there or something, and they ended up taking his cover picture in the town of Pontypool, and he felt like he owed them a book for it, and that's how he ended up
Oh,
writing this book.
that's good trivia.
Yeah, I just thought that it would be, I don't know. I was really hoping that he had done other sequels. It's been 12 years since this movie came out, 13 almost. And so we really don't have anything else. And like you said, it's not that strong of a movie. It needs a
I,
sequel to elaborate on some of these concepts.
yeah, and what would be really unique is to treat it almost like the Dead series, Romero's Dead series, where the sequels are other people involved in the same event
Mm-hmm.
from different perspectives,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like a
And
grocery store or something instead of a radio.
even if he
Yeah.
kept it Pontypool, take the doctor's experience,
Yeah.
use his version.
Now
of
that
thing.
was a moment I found extremely funny and coincidental when the doctor comes climbing through the window into the studio. I was like, "What the fuck is that?"
Yeah. And if he had had a wheelchair, he would have been Dr. Scott. I mean, it was that kind of cliche, He was like,
Well,
oh,
yeah,
he's very good. Listen to him. Listen to what he's
So, I
saying
mean,
now.
it was like what you would have to do in a stage play, because they were only on one set. It was like, how do we get this doctor into the radio set? Well, we'll just have him climb in the window.
Yeah. It was, but again, that was an idea of keeping it centered to this location, keeping it low budget, keeping it almost like a play. It felt very theatrical all the way through it. For those of you, one of my biggest keys, like I just said, is Eric Bogosian's Talking With, our talk radio.
Or talk radio,
because it basically is following this DJ and what happens to him during this live broadcast every day, sort of thing. And he's a shock jock type who's insulting people and doing the thing. We didn't get enough, again, shoulda, couldas, or almost could have been. We didn't get really enough of that, of Mazzy, I thought. He wasn't shocking, so to speak, as much. A couple of hints, but then his producer calmed him back down out of it, kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I love that actor.
He was
McHattie.
really, I like both of them.
Yeah. They're married in real life, right?
Well, I do now. So yes. Excellent to know that.
You're talking about Sydney, his producer. Yeah.
Yeah. And she's alive, by the way.
She's what?
Saying that. Isn't that what they say? Sydney Brill is alive.
Oh, yeah. Sydney Brier is alive. Sydney
alive.
Brier is alive.
Yeah.
She's also the Kiss is Kill. Kiss is Kill. Kiss is Kill.
Sure it is.
It's a very bleak movie too. It doesn't have a happy ending. It's a very strange movie. Before we get a little bit more into that, though, I think I may have just answered my question about why we've never seen more of this.
Yes.
The movie was originally influenced, and this is a huge key, on Orson Welles' War of the Worlds radio broadcast. I think they tried to make it into a radio. At one point, the film was going to just be whatever that little line is that you see that wiggles when people talk.
Yeah.
And it was just going to be the voices, and you weren't going to see anything. That would be 2 hours of hell.
Yeah, I wouldn't make that more than an hour. No.
No, but so they had all these ideas, and then they end. It's called a wavering line. That's what I was trying to come up with. The movie was budgeted at $1.5 million, and it only grossed, according to IMDb, 3,800. It says the opening weekend in US and Canada was 1,500, and that the worldwide gross, I guess, after everything, was $32,000. So this
Wow.
movie didn't make any money at all.
No.
And that's probably why we never have seen much of it.
Well, imagine the guys. I mean, in marketing, how would you market this movie? It's not, is it a horror? Is it a comedy? Is it, was it?
Is it radio?
Right. You'd probably have to play up the whole zombie aspect, even though, I couldn't technically define them as zombies really, because I didn't see in the aftermath.
No. And it looks like some of the, I read somewhere where they attack your mouth and try to chew your lips off. But the chick in the radio station chewed her own lip off, or beat it off when she was slamming into the window.
Yeah.
Which was my favorite part. Just her standing there staring at them was the creepiest thing in the entire fucking movie.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
By far. But to have a throwback to first season, and for those of you that would like to listen, you can go back and listen to it. This is one of those movies like Splinter that I remember better than it actually was. Splinter was, I think, our season finale of season 1.
Mm-hmm. I have it in my keys. I have Splinter and The Girl That Knew Too Much, the girl that with all the gifts.
Why do you have those as keys, though?
Because it reminded me of a small group of people trapped in an isolated Splinter, because small group of people trapped and isolated, and they have no idea what the hell this foreign thing is that they can't even explain. They just see the aftermaths and what they can possibly do to survive or get out of it. And then I had the girl with all the gifts, because it's, again, a very unique look at a genre.
Yeah.
They were, you had to be silent, and they had the whole insect kind of grew out of you sort of thing, spore transmission or whatever. We both got grossed out covering that about the ants with stuff growing out of them because they're taken over by the parasite.
That was something I found in real life. Zombie ants.
But it got worse. It just wasn't. But so I had both of those. But yeah, I could feel, when you said Splinter, I immediately went, yeah, it's in my notes. I definitely felt Splinter-esque when I was watching this.
I just had it as a key within ourselves, not as within the movie so much, because it is one of those movies that I really remembered and thought, you know what, we should do this movie. And then I watched it again and went, it's not as good as I remembered it. But whatever.
But not terrible.
It's not horrible.
One of those is bad. This isn't bad. I think it needs more of a, it's a good first draft that needs a rewrite, or it's a good fifth draft that needs a rewrite, sort of thing.
Or more conceptualization.
To push it over, I think, because the performances are all strong. I think the direction is adequate and fine. It's not flashy. It's not... but it's also not genre. It's not very scary. It's not, there's 2 jump scares in it, really, and 1 gore effect. So as a horror movie, it's not going to make horror, especially modern day horror people, not going to make them happy.
Nah. I do love her staring and running into that window, and then eventually, like you said, she just barfs up a lot of blood out that window.
Yeah.
It's like projectile.
And the doctor says that's because she couldn't find anybody else. And I don't know what. I don't know what the hell that means.
Or something.
Yes. Yeah. And so that was my issue, is I couldn't. if you can't define the threat totally, other than it just drives people mad, crazy, maybe. But I wish he had taken a stand one way or the other. Because I did like, and I thought that's what they were leading to. Okay, so high points. One of the high points of the movie to me was the obits section. That was just creepy and weird and came from nowhere. And I went, okay, I like that. Because basically he's reading the obits, which can't be practical because he wouldn't have gotten them written this way because this just is happening at the same time. But basically the obits are everybody who died that day, and they either died by murder or suicide. Every single person.
Mm-hmm.
He'll go so-and-so, killed by his parent, his wife and 2 children, and eventually he killed, and you're going, what? So, but that was neat. And I thought, oh, so that's what it is. It drives you psychotic. Whatever this is makes you psychotic and you kill people. That's okay. You don't have to eat them to still be a menacing threat as a plague. You know what I mean?
Right. A lot of the faster zombie type films are that way. They're, like I said, they use the word infected. They don't use the word dead or zombie, so to speak. Yeah.
Right. And then I thought, was he wanting to say, this is me overthinking because I was trying to read stuff into it. But there she is on your picture. If you're watching YouTube, there she is, and that was creepy.
Yeah, I forgot to put her picture up.
But if I was thinking, was he wanting to say that this is a statement on media? This is a statement on the fact that they'll feed you anything until you literally go crazy. That you'll latch on to a word that says a lot.
That's the Romero approach right there.
Correct. And if he had done that further, I think, again, one of those where he was right here on like step 4, we needed to go to 8 or 9. And if he had said, this is what media does to it. You fixate on one thing and it will drive you freaking crazy, but you're bombarded all the time by all of this.
Yeah. Especially now, because this was in 2008.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
I
think I just started Facebook in 2008.
Well, it would have made it so topical now with social media and everything else. It would have made it so topical.
Yeah, now's when they need to revisit it.
Mm-hmm. And give it that that kind of media saturation is too much. We can't take that much in. It drives us mad and makes us want to kill our entire families.
Exactly.
Sort of thing. So, yeah.
I can't tell you how much I've turned off Facebook. I don't look at it as much anymore because it drives me crazy.
Well, and Twitter can be the same way, Instagram can be the same way, but it's usually, the opinions and the comments, not the images kind of thing. But I just thought, I thought she was really good. And I actually had an emotional connection with her. When she finally started turning, I was going, oh, no, not her. Missing. I actually liked her.
Missing.
Yeah, missing was her word.
Missing was her word, yeah.
So if you haven't seen this movie, she did
it really well. It was subtle at first. And then you're like, wait a minute. And then you realize what's happening. And you're like, oh, shit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a really good turn for her. I thought the weakest link in it obviously was the doctor, just because he was a little bit cliche, and I didn't like that. But I love the whole Ken thing, the copter guy. But I started again. I don't think there was enough exposition for me to establish good connections with these people, so that when his producer is telling him Ken's not in a helicopter, he's in his Dodge Dart, and he's using sound effects. How long has he been doing this radio station? Enough that he's got posters everywhere. Yeah. Enough that he knows the town, but he doesn't know Ken's not in a helicopter. So I got confused there even. And then I started thinking, overthinking again. By the middle of the movie, I'm going, oh, he's wanting to confuse me. That's why he's not giving me these answers, because he wants me at the end of this movie to be totally confused, which kind of leads to the last post-credit scene.
Which is out there, and it reminds me of that movie. I can't remember the name of it. The comic book movie that was
Sin City.
Yes, Sin City, exactly.
Yeah,
That's what it reminded
Robert
me of.
Rodriguez.
Mhm.
Well, I had that in my keys. Is that was a very Robert Rodriguez kind of effect, and then it slowly went into color at the end of it, kind of thing.
Mhm.
But it also, for me, as soon as that scene started, I thought this is Quentin Tarantino. This is such a Quentin Tarantino sort of look. You have the good girl, the guy in the cowboy hat with the glasses. They're all
I
in this.
believe his name was Johnny Deadeyes, wasn't it?
Yeah, something like it was so Tarantino.
Yeah, it was Johnny Deadeyes and Lisa the Killer instead of being had what was McHattie's character? Mazzy and
Mazzy
Sydney.
and
Yeah,
Sydney.
they were now Johnny Deadeyes and Lisa the Killer. I was like, well, wait a minute. The way the movie ended, I thought they were being bombed.
Oh yeah, they were being bombed.
It was very bleak. It was kind of like Return of the Living Dead, where they discover the answer, they're trying to communicate it, and then they get bombed.
And they get killed. Yes, that was exactly.
But then all of a sudden, they're alive post credits, and they're doing this weird improvisational thing, which I'm assuming is their new way of fending off the disease. I don't know.
I didn't get the ending one little bit. If you're out there listening and you understand what that post-credit scene is, let me know.
It was very strange.
I did not get that at all. I was gone by then.
I don't have a lot on cast because it's a Canadian cast that we don't really know, and it wasn't a very big movie, so I don't know of any other movies these people were in, with exception to Stephen McHattie, who I brought up when we did the movie Watchmen last season. McHattie is Hollis Mason in Watchmen.
Yeah,
that the original Hawk guy, wasn't he?
Yes,
or owl guy. Anyway,
Nighthawk.
Night Owl. When we did that movie, I was like, oh, I recognize him from Pontypool.
Oh, okay.
You were probably like, from what?
From what? Yeah, he had a great voice. I love the grizzled kind of attitude that he had. Again, I just wanted a little bit more exposition justification for it. And I love the way he lost it at times. It was very realistic. I mean, he would literally just like freeze kind of wide-eyed going, what the hell is going on? You know, and it was great. That's why it might have been interesting if he had been more cynical and in control and a shock jock at the beginning. So we see that actual life intrude on him sort of thing. You know what I mean?
Yes. It's almost like they fell on the cliched alcoholic instead of letting him be something a little more unique.
Yeah, or have some little nice old lady call in about the 911 question and him just totally just mess her up and disregard her and everything else. And
just be an asshole.
Sydney get upset about that going, that's not, that's not going to help ratings or whatever, that sort of thing. So we get a little bit more of an arc to him because every character in this is kind of one note too, all the way through. And again, I think that's just bad screenwriting. I don't think it's the director's fault or the actor's fault.
I think you're right. And I think you kind of proved that when you mentioned his directing track record since. I think it's the script. But this could have been what broke them both in and what has been more successful is what I'm thinking.
Does this predate your Walking Dead, the book? I mean, the novels, the graphic novels?
No.
Okay.
No. Because The Walking Dead premiered in like 2010, I think. And those comic books had been out a few years before then.
Okay. Copy.
Yeah.
Right.
This movie won that I know of no awards. it barely made 50 cents, apparently. And it is not on the 1001 movies you must see before you die, but it's on my list of things I wanted to see. So there. The only other thing I have other than a few keys are I have one little thing, a tradition of trivia. Let me see if I can just read this. Bruce McDonald, director of the film, said the victims of the virus are called conversation as opposed to zombies. In describing stages of the virus, McDonald said there are 3 stages. The first stage, you might repeat a word. Something gets stuck. It's usually words like a term of endearment, like sweetheart or honey. The second stage is your language becomes scrambled and you can't express yourself properly. The third stage is that you become so distraught at your condition that the only way out of the situation you feel as an infected person is to try and chew your way through the mouth of another person. Okay. I didn't totally get that.
Never got that from the script.
In the final product. No.
No.
It did look like when that one woman jumped them in the lobby that she was trying to bite the mouth area. I did get that. Like she was going for the face. But
yeah, but yeah. So there's that. I again, the reasons behind any of it, the motivations and the actual results. I mean, it's to me, any kind of contagion, doesn't matter what it is, you have to show the results of it for us to feel the importance or to connect with it. You know what I mean? So, but
yeah, I do, Brad. Keep it up with the hand movements.
I couldn't, so I didn't get that. You know, again, it's one of those where I have such mixed comments about this. Like, I think it could be either shorter or longer. I think it could have said a lot more or said a lot less. So,
well, or if it was a trilogy, they could have elaborated in the second film stuff that we didn't pick up on in the first film too.
Yeah, but I don't buy that. I'm not into plan your trilogy ahead. I'd rather your movie be your movie, and then you can add to it with.
Well, it should stand on its own, that's for sure. And the mythos is definitely confusing in this.
Agreed.
Yeah.
The actual threat is ambiguous, and that leads to not a lot of emotional involvement in what's happening, other than the fact that these people are trapped, they probably won't survive, and at the end they don't, sort of thing. So I do like they obviously have a lot of chemistry together. Obviously you said they were married, so that works. But their scenes of survival together are really good.
Yeah, her name is Lisa Houle, and she is married to Stephen McHattie. I don't know how long, but they are a real life couple. So you could, and it was interesting because they're not a couple in the movie, but they still have chemistry.
Right.
Professional chemistry, I guess you would say. What about keys? Where are we with keys?
Let me go through my list. So I had talk radio, of course, and I mentioned that. Night of the Living Dead, I think it has to. It's a zombie movie. It is a group of people thrown together in a very unique situation and all kind of semi-trapped, and it ends the same way. If you think they're going to get out, and they don't.
No, I would say Night of the Living Dead is the biggest key to this movie than anything else because of what you just said. The fact that they're trapped, it's from out of nowhere. No one knows what it is. But even the post credits, when the credits are rolling, before you get to that weird little Sin City thing, all you hear are broadcasts of things happening.
Oh, yes.
Like bad things. And it reminded me of the clips of them building the pyres and burning the bodies and stuff.
So much information in both the opening and closing credits of this movie. So if you do watch this and why are you listening to us if you haven't seen it? But watch those again, those sequences, because there's a lot. And I read some review debate after it about, did they contain it by bombing Pontypool or did it get out again, sort of thing. And obviously in the credits, I think it was pretty apparent that it kept going. It kept spreading. I've got War of the Worlds, of course, speaking of broadcast, because this had that War of the Worlds feel to it. I have Videodrome. That kind of reminded me of Videodrome, whereas in Videodrome he was addicted. I mean, the infection came from video and led to the psychosis. This was audio, leading to the psychotic episodes. Of course, this is more of an epidemic, and that was much more of a you know, of a singular. He's going crazy and wanting to put a videotape in his stomach, kind of thing.
I'm reading right here in something I clipped from, I think, Wiki, that over the black credits at the end, before they get to that weird little post-credit sequence, it says the news reports further outbreaks of the virus suggest that the quarantine failed, spread by the news itself, and eventually reaching England, the source its targeted language. So I know that's just another red herring they're throwing out there. Maybe, they're attacking English people only.
And we need to know in the next sequel what can happen. Yeah.
Right. It's in Europe. I don't know. Strange.
Yeah.
Very strange.
And then
go ahead.
You go with your keys.
Are you waiting on me?
Yes.
Oh,
I said
sorry.
You go with your keys.
Well, I didn't say Videodrome specifically. I just said David Cronenberg because it's Canadian and it reminds me of a David Cronenberg movie. However, in retrospect, some of the scenes are very Cronenberg-esque, especially the scene where she's staring at them through the glass and then slamming herself against it. That reminds me of something you would see in a Cronenberg movie, something visceral and violent. You mentioned the radio broadcast of War of the Worlds. I said that as well. I mentioned that they worked on another project. This is, I guess, a key, but not really, because it doesn't sound related to me. But it says that Pontypool Changes was currently in active development, but it never happened. So I guess Pontypool Changes was going to be the sequel. But in 2018, both McDonald and Burgess collaborated on a movie called Dreamland, which saw release in 2020. And they say it is a spin-off, serving as a sequel to the film's post-credit non sequitur scene. So do you think Johnny Deadeyes and Lisa the Killer are in it?
Sure, they're in Dreamland, baby.
It says that McHattie and Houle reprised their roles. He additionally commented that Pontypool Changes, also known as Typo Chan, would follow the English language virus, passing into the written word and also featuring McHattie and Houle. So I hear about all this stuff, but we have not seen it, and it has been a long time. So
again, and then my last key is the mist. This had a lot of that mist kind of, again, you're trapped, you're behind glass was in it as well, that kind of feel to it.
The monsters are outside.
The monsters are outside, and you don't really know what they are or why this happened, or, that same kind of paranoid insulation kind of feel.
Right.
So
this is a technical key and my last key as well, because I don't have as many either. But approximately 36 minutes into the movie, Ken has reported that people are being taken from a van and being eaten. The sound of those people screaming was lifted from the chestburster scene in Alien.
Yeah, I could hear that. Yeah. You can even hear that the way he screams when it finally starts bursting. Yeah.
And then there's a hissing sound that's very prominent as well.
When he's doing that. Yep. Yeah.
So yes, this movie has an Alien soundbite in it.
Woohoo!
Believe it or not. So,
people should have spent more money to see it from that, just
Ridley
for that.
Scott is my key.
Yes, Ridley Scott and Alien, and John Hurt's gutterations, so to speak.
Yeah.
I mean, overall, I'm glad you picked it. I'm glad we watched it. I think it is worth a watch for people.
Oh, I just realized it is a foreign film.
It is a foreign film, so
we're going to do a tally of foreign films this season because we usually do like 2, and I swear we've done 10 this season.
It seems like it, yes. But this one is much better than what was Forbidden Planet? No, Fantastic Planet.
Yeah. This is definitely not the worst one we've done this season.
No. But yeah, so I'm glad you picked it. So,
well, you're welcome.
And hopefully all you guys out there listening are glad that we picked it, or that Tim picked it and we watched it. We would love to hear what you guys think. Please comment.
I'm being serious. I would like to hear what people think of this film.
Yes, but only communicate in written word in French so that we understand. We don't go crazy and eat each other's lips off or whatever. But
written.
Oh no, Tim's gone. Let's get in the booth. It's we do like doing this every week, in case you guys couldn't tell, and we hope that you'll rejoin us again next week when we do a new podcast. And also, you can look up any of our old podcasts. So we've been doing this for 4 seasons now, so you can go on the website, you go on the Facebook page, all that fun stuff, and you can find old episodes.
You can find episodes that were Splinter and Girl with All the Gifts, which we have also talked about in this very episode in our first season.
We have covered them already.
It was before we were doing video, but they're out there audio wise. And I think they're on YouTube, but only with a still picture since we weren't doing video at the time. So you can get them in either format.
It was years ago, back with flip phones and everything. You know?
Yeah, 2 years ago. No.
Yeah. And if you are listening to us on YouTube, of course, you guys should know the routine by now. If you subscribe, give us a comment, give us a good review, all that stuff just helps us continue to do this. So we would really appreciate it. Tim, I guess next week we'll be somewhere different, in a different world.
Something tells me it will be in sci-fi land.
Maybe. We can only hope.
Oh, yeah. It's a good one, too. We're going back. We're going way back.
We're going way back. Okay. But I guess I'll see you then, man.
Bye.
Bye.
You can't start the car. Johnny has the keys.